Hi everyone, Stepan here. I'm going to show you my 7th game on Lichessladders, where I played a variation I tried out in a tournament game in Versailles a few months ago. I lost the game but got a very good position, and I decided to test it again, which is b6 against the English. A very interesting opening. And if you don't know what Lichessladders is, once again, it's a great new fun way to play classical chess online. It's completely free. There's a link in the description. You basically get to join a Lichessladder, a leaderboard, and you try to climb to the top. And if you get challenged, you have the black pieces, and for winning you get nothing. You do not advance. But if you get challenged and lose, the winner takes your spot. If you challenge someone else, you have white, and if you win, you take their spot. So that's how it works. There's a bunch of people in the ladder. I think it's very competitive, and as part of Milan's and mine training camp, which we are doing at the moment, well, I guess you are gonna watch this after the fact, but basically when the game was played, we were preparing for a tournament which has ended by now, and I was trying to play as many games as possible. So I got challenged by a low-rated opponent, 1600. And as I said, I'm going to be using my prep from Versailles, so c4, b6. The idea behind this is either to play a Dutch or to play a normal position where white is unable to fianchetto their bishop, which you know is what most English players try to do. So my opponent played knight c6, I played bishop b7 and d4, which is fine. Now transposing to a normal Queen's Indian type of position if I play knight f6. However, I don't have to play knight f6, and I have the option to play f5. So when my opponent plays e4, I play bishop b4. As you can see, this is still theory. And now there's pressure on e4. There are 3 ways to defend. Basically 4. You can play d5, queen c2, bishop d3, or f3. And the only move I remembered was f3. And I thought that f3 was by far the best move. It's just the most common move. When my opponent played bishop d3, I thought I was already better, because of course f5. Now f3 is better than bishop d3, but that's another story. After f5, my opponent needs to do something very drastic. He played d5. The alternative was queen h5. So he plays d5, and I thought that this is strange and bad. It's just equal, which is of course great for black, but I thought black had to be better. And Milan was watching the entire game. I was playing on a real board, and we had agreed that he was gonna write down his thoughts, and I'm going to think out loud so that he can hear the mistakes in my thought process. And this is actually the first time we did this, me playing a game in front of him and he was, you know, recording my thoughts. And at several points during the game, he asked me to evaluate the position, and I was so off. And I had a feeling that I was off. I just didn't understand anything. And my evaluations were way off. And I have to say, this must be one of the worst games I've ever played when it comes to, you know, understanding, and when it comes to actual moves as well. So this structure with EC, E and C4 and D5 for white, and the Dutch structure for black is something I'm completely unfamiliar with, and I didn't know how to play it well. So it's a very rare structure. I hope it's instructive for you as well. Okay, at this point I have to take on e4. That much was clear to me. Bishop e4 is forced, and I played knight f6, which is still theory. I was expecting bishop f3, and I was looking forward to bishop f3, where I can take on d5, but my opponent played bishop g5. And apparently now black has a significant advantage. I'm going to turn on the engine so that you guys can see. Out of the opening, getting a position which is minus 0.4 is huge. We're almost out of book, so let's turn this off. And I castled, which is a big mistake. Here's the problem. Here is my first mistake. Everything up to this point I played perfectly. I missed that when I castle, my king and rook are lined up, so I can never take on d5, never. Not only is my knight pinned, so I cannot take with the knight, but if I took with the pawn, my opponent wins my rook, or my bishop, or both. So castles is a very bad move. So after castles, let's say my opponent played knight e2. I just want to show you what happens. If I take, I'm just losing. They can take on f6 first or just take on d5. It doesn't really matter. And I'm losing material. Probably takes on f6 is better, but you can see that everything is lined up. So instead of that, I should have played a very simple move, bishop takes c3. Now, this does two things. It ruins my opponent's structure, and it also weakens his control over d5. So now when I castle, if my opponent takes, the bishop is hanging. That's very important. And if they retreat the bishop, now I cannot take on d5 still, because my rook is still hanging. But I can play queen e8, I can play knight a6, get into c5, and just get a great structure where I'm at least dominating the c5 square. So that's what I should have done. But instead I castled, my opponent played knight e2, and now I realized I could be in trouble, and I couldn't find the move. Once again, bishop takes c3 was best, but I wanted to unpin, so I played queen e8. And I'm almost losing. At this point, Milan didn't ask me to evaluate, but I remember saying that before I had a long think, that I think my position is still good. But it's completely off. So bishop takes f6, because now the bishop on e4 is hanging. So bishop takes f6, rook takes f6. Another issue introduced now, which I wasn't aware of before actually making this move, is that after any exchanges happen, the knight is going to come to e4 with tempo on the rook. Big mistake. So castles, and here I was just once again way off. I played bishop d6, and my reasoning was, well, if my opponent doesn't do anything, I'm going to take on h2, which is stupid. If my opponent doesn't do anything and I take on h2, I'm losing. Because king h2, if I play queen h5 check, then king g1, and on rook h6, excuse me, there is not knight g3, but f3. And the king just runs away. So bishop d6 is not only a bad move, it creates a threat that doesn't exist. Worst of all, well, my opponent could have improved the position with knight g3. That's besides the point. My opponent played h3, which is a waste of time. Worst of all, I don't have a way to deal with all the problems. At this point, I said that, I'm worse, I could be losing, I remember that. And I couldn't find the move. So I was really afraid of de6. So I thought if I played knight a6, my opponent was going to take. And after bishop e4, knight e4, rook e6, knight takes d6, rook takes d6, this seemed ugly to me. I got this far. Or maybe queen c2. This seemed like ugly to me. There's no reason to be afraid in this position. It's a fine position. So another misevaluation. Instead I played an awful move, e5. Because I wanted to prevent d6. e5 is bad for two reasons. It blocks in my bishop, and it kills my knight. My knight is just dead, and I'm never going to develop. So knight g3, I finally played knight a6, but in this position it's too late. My knight has no squares to go to. Queen c2, g6, I have to defend. I wanted to play knight b4, and of course if my opponent takes on h7 I'm winning, but he can just go queen b1, and then a3, b4. So g6, a3, and here I compounded my mistake with queen e7. I remember saying I need to play actively, there's no time for anything, and I want to go rook af8. The reason I didn't play knight c5 is because I don't really want to take on e4, because the knight's coming to e4, one of the knights, and I have nothing to do there. My opponent should have probably considered either b4 or just moving the bishop away and planting a knight on e4, because there's nothing I can do about that. But he played rook a1, which isn't precise, but it's okay. Rook f8, b4. Yeah. At this point, I was still relatively optimistic. Milan asked me to evaluate, and I said, okay, I think I like my position now, because I have c6. I do not have c6. It just doesn't work. c6, there is c5. And I saw that. Of course, I didn't play c6, and I couldn't find the move, so I played knight b8. The reason I played knight b8 is I wanted to play a5, and I wanted to be able to play a6 on knight b5. And then when my opponent played knight b5, I realized that I don't have a5. If I play a5 here, just knight takes d6. If I play a6 here, knight takes d6. If I play c6 here, it's even worse. Knight d6, whichever piece takes on d6, and c5, and that's the end of the game. So I ended up playing c5, which at the time seemed like the only move. And my opponent played dc, which was surprising to me. I was expecting probably bishop d3 followed by knight e4. But he took, and I made another mistake. I lost material because I missed a check. I need to take with the pawn. I need to take with the d pawn. That's the only way to save material. Instead I took with the knight, and now there's a very simple way to win material. Bishop d, sorry, not what he played, but bishop d5 check. I move my king, and knight e4. That's it. Not only am I losing, but I'm losing material. So instead he took knight a7, and I was really happy to see this, because now I finally have some breathing room. My dreadful knight that came from b8 is now on d4, and oof, okay, he played queen d3, and I didn't know what to do here, so I took on e4. I should have gone bishop c6. In hindsight, that makes way more sense, but okay. Knight takes e4, rook f4, and in this position my opponent took on d6, which isn't a good move, because now I'm finally free to do whatever I want. He should have just gone knight b5, challenging my knight, and I couldn't have sustained the knight on b5. So he took, I took with the queen, of course. He went rook d1. Now I'm back. Queen f6, now there's pressure on f2, and all of my pieces are working together. I'm down a pawn, but that's completely irrelevant because of my piece activity. And if you've seen the last two games in this series, you will know that I often get positions which are seemingly winning with many tactical opportunities, but when the tactics don't work, I still sometimes go for them. Because I don't see that they don't work, and I hope that something's going to be there. Now, I wouldn't do that in a tournament game. I never did that in a tournament game. But yeah, and I spoke about that to Milan. I wish I had the same feeling of accountability during training games. That, you know, if I lose the game, I lose rating points. That's the best reference. Because I'm playing a bit more like Tal than I would in a tournament game. So my opponent played rook d2. And of course I played knight f3 check. This is, I was hoping for this tactic from the beginning of the game. And knight f3 is just a winning move, was in my mind. Of course I had to do that. The point being, well, he needs to defend the f2 pawn with queen d2, otherwise the rook's hanging. So now knight f3, gf3 of course. And at this point I had a couple of minutes on the clock. Well, we can see the clock time, 5 minutes. And my opponent was down to seconds. And I couldn't figure everything out. My original idea, before I played queen f6, before he played rook d2, before I played knight f3, was to play queen h4 in this position. I thought that was stronger. Queen h4, as you can see here, is the losing move. And I played it in 5 seconds. I should have gone queen g5 check first. Now, one of the issues, let me just explain, is queen takes d7, which defends h3 and defends g4. That's one issue. The other issue is queen d5, and if king h8 or king g7, queen e5 check. That's the second issue. So if I go queen g5, the king must go to either h2 or h1. In both cases, I play rook d4 and win the rook, which I didn't even consider. So, say here, rook d4. If queen e3, then I take, and take. This part of the combination, I didn't see. That's why knight f3 works, because you win the rook on d2. Not because you mate your opponent. I didn't even think about the rook on d2. Well, in my defense, neither did Milan. Neither of us saw this. So that's why queen g5 is immediately winning. Queen h4 is immediately losing because of both queen d5 and queen d7. Queen d7 is cleaner. Queen takes d7 and that's it. What do I do? If say I take on f3, then queen g4. That's it, I'm just down a piece. Doesn't work. Instead, my opponent played king h2. And now, obviously, I'm winning. Rook takes f3. There's no more time for queen d7 or anything like that because I have queen f4. He played queen d5 check, which doesn't work. And I need to cover with the rook. We go king g7, my opponent's defending with check, so rook f7, and that's the end of the game. My opponent played rook d3, I played queen h3, king g1, rook takes d3, queen a8 check, king g7, knight b5. Now I missed mate in 2 with rook g3. What can you do? I didn't want to allow queen g2, so the only thing I was looking at here was queen g4, queen g2, or queen g4, of course, king h1, rook h3 mate, but I didn't see rook g3, which is a very clean win. Instead, I played rook df3, which is also mate. It's just a couple of moves later. He needs to take. The point being, on queen g4, he doesn't have queen g2, so after queen d5, I played queen g4. Checkmate on h3. So I won the game. I should have lost the game. I did not play well. I did not understand what was going on. I got away unpunished. Congratulations to my opponent for navigating that position well, relatively well. He had many winning opportunities, but yeah, he played a much better game than me. Thank you guys for watching. Once again, if you want to join the fight on Lichessladders, follow the link below. Bye-bye.